Hi, this is Natalie Hoffman of FlyingFreeNow.com, and you're listening to the Flying Free Podcast, a support resource for women of faith looking for hope and healing from hidden emotional and spiritual abuse. Welcome to episode 39 of the Flying Free Podcast. Today, Rachel and I are going to be talking, we're going to be actually answering a question. And hello, Rachel.
Hey.
She's going to actually read the question, and then we're going to dig in and talk about it. So go ahead.
Here we go. My biggest challenge is currently trying to stop thinking and obsessing about the marriage and whether there's any hope for us getting back together. Will he change the emotional abusive behavior? Also, although he's not good for me, I still feel a very strong attraction and am pining for him. And he takes up so much of my thoughts, and my heart feels heavy. Is this trauma bonding? How can I recover from this? I find it especially difficult when well-meaning pastors say things like, God put you together, so don't let the enemy steal your marriage, and that it's always possible for change, etc. It makes me procrastinate even more. I'm trying to do no contact, and I'm amazed at how tough I'm finding it. So is this trauma bonding? I think we can say yes.
Yeah. And so Rachel, I actually looked this up online. I found a little article on Wikipedia. So if anyone wants to look up the article, just all you have to do is Google trauma bonding, and this little article will come up. And trauma bonding is the intermittent reinforcement of reward and punishment. That's how we become trauma bonded. So when you think about abuse, that's exactly what it is. It's this intermittent reinforcement of reward and punishment. And that's why it's so difficult. For the longer that you're in a relationship like that, the more difficult it's going to be to extract yourself from it.
Yeah. I think for a lot of women, the experience is, so at the beginning of the relationship, they are, their husbands are looking at them and treating them like just the most beautiful, wonderful person in the entire world. And they're just so in love, and they just treat you so well. Maybe there's a few red flags here and there, but for the most part, they're just, they're love bombing you. They're basically acting as though you are their everything. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then as the relationship wears on, maybe real life comes into the mix. There's more, some more red flags popping up. And then after a while, they are just completely into this power mode where they use their position as your spouse or whatever in this relationship in order to take control. And they have very specific expectations for how they want you to act. And if you don't meet those, and they change a lot, the goalposts move all the time. Mm-hmm. If you don't meet them, whatever they are that day, then there is some form of punishment. They withdraw that love, that attention. And what that does to people in a both an emotional and then also a physical way, in a chemical way in your body with stress and love hormones, it causes you to just do everything you can to get that love back, that attention back, that source of, those compliments, that all of that affection. And it is devastating. Okay. This is a real thing. This is like a drug addiction. You are reliant on something for your well-being that is bad for you. Okay. And what happens eventually is that it doesn't take very many rewards, and you still you bear it out. You keep putting up with the punishment or the bad phases, and then just hoping for that reward. And it doesn't even have to come very often, but if it could come, that's what keeps you going.
Right.
It's horrible.
It is. I've noticed that when women separate, or when they're thinking about separating, they're still, what ends up happening is their partner will give them more of that positive reinforcement then. Mm-hmm, and so it's so tempting to want to go back into that then, because you experience this relief. That feels normal. Getting out feels very abnormal. It's going against everything that you think and that you believe, and you're swimming upstream. Whereas just sliding back into that normal, just accepting that love, even if it's not real, even if you know it's not going to last, feels better. It just feels better.
It does. It is so uncomfortable. I mean, more than uncomfortable. It's really devastating to see, like, my husband was bringing home flowers. He was helping me with some kids I was babysitting. Like, he had never done that, even with our own son. Okay. So he was like actually playing an active role in like kids' lives. And like, there's nothing more attractive than a man who's helping with a baby. Right. And he had never done that before. So I was like seeing him with new eyes and like seeing what he could have been.
Yeah.
And it was so hard because, also you're just living on that hope. I've talked about this before, where I just lived on the hope of what could be over and over again. And it certainly wasn't my reality, but I knew it was possible. And so I kept working towards it because I had seen little glimpses of who he could be, but he chose not to be that person. And I had to accept that was something that he made a conscious decision that that's not who he was.
Yes. And that actually is the very first step to extracting yourself, or to basically I don't know if you would call it deprogramming, or what do they call it when you're coming off of an addiction? What is that called?
Detoxing.
Detoxing. Yes. Yeah. The first step is to let go of that fantasy thinking, that magical thinking, and to stay rooted in the uncomfortable truth of reality.
Yes.
So, and that's really hard to do when, like you said, when they're holding the baby and when they're acting super, super nice, that's really hard to push past that and go, okay, that's not real. You want to believe that's real, but that's the not real part of the relationship. That's the fake part.
Exactly. And I want to key in on a phrase you used that is so important. It is letting go or surrendering. So one of the most pivotal moments in my time when I was coming to realize what was truly going on in my marriage was I was reading Leslie Vernick's book, The Emotionally Destructive Marriage. And there was the page where she talks about surrender, like, will you surrender the outcome of your marriage to the Lord? And I remember just collapsing on the floor of my laundry room because I was so overcome with fear about what would happen because I had held on so tightly and just tried to make things work, and it just wouldn't. And I knew it. And I said, yes, I will. And it was the first step in allowing his responsibility to be his responsibility and my responsibility to be my responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's really key. You can't control what they do. You can only control what you do.
Right. The other thing I was going to say too is that it's the other piece of this that makes it super hard is that you're not the only one that is fighting against yourself. You've got other voices telling you, look at what he's doing. Look, he's turning his life around. Look at all of these good things. So you're having to push past your own inner voice that wants that relief. And then also the voices of everybody else who are really, you know what it's like? It's like a drug addict with his drug addict buddies telling him, or her.
The other junkies.
The other junkies. No, come on, just shoot up one more time. It's going to feel so good. You're going to get relief. Yeah. And you don't want to do that. So that's another part to your healing is you need to get away from the other junkies. And you need to start hanging out with people who are going to tell you the truth about your drug addiction.
Exactly. And here's the thing, Natalie, they are so rare. The people who are willing to sit in uncomfortable and messy situations and not give you pat answers like, oh, don't let the enemy take away your marriage, as if it hadn't already been taken away because of...
Right.
Yeah. There's so much to say there, but they just want to they want to give you some nice little scripture, spiritualizing messages, and then put a bow on it and send you on your way and feel good about themselves and what they've done. Instead of sitting with you in the messiness and the pain and acknowledging that there is not always an answer for why people do what they do or why God allows people to do what they do.
Right.
Right. And to acknowledge even the depths of evil that's truly present in the world.
Yep.
And what we see so often in abusive marriages.
Yeah. So another thing that you had said earlier was that you can't control what they do. So the other thing that you need to do, the other step, we didn't really put these steps in order, but we're I think this is step number 3, or strategy number 3 is to start focusing not on your relationship with this person. So in other words, don't focus on the drug. You need to start focusing on taking care of yourself. All right?
Yeah.
So if you know that something's not healthy for you and something's destroying you, and you care about yourself, you're going to remove yourself from those situations, and you're going to start taking care of yourself. And when you start focusing on your own mental health, your own emotional health, your own spiritual health, that's going to create a shift in you that follows. So sometimes we have to do things physically before our feelings catch up with us. We might feel like, oh, I just feel like this woman said, I just feel, how did she put it? I feel so upset. She used the word obsessed at one point.
Yeah. She knows her heart feels heavy. She knows that he's not good for her, but he takes up so much of her thoughts anyway.
Yes. So the focus there obviously is this person, the other person. Yeah. She's not focusing on her health. She is obsessed with the drug. I love that drug analogy. I'm going to use that all the time now. Totally works. So how you take care. So Rachel, can you think of ways that things that you actually did, practical things that you did to take care of yourself that helped you make that shift in your thinking away from him and onto yourself, which sounds, again, it's like you have to go against all of the Christian cliche teaching that you learned that says, oh no, you shouldn't take care of yourself. You shouldn't love yourself. You shouldn't, you need to just die to yourself, like die.
It's the turd in the glass of lemonade. There's some truth there. Like, don't be completely selfish, right? But you can't love others. You can't love others if you don't love yourself. There's no love to give. Okay. And that's something that we really have to get in our heads. But as far as how to take care of yourself, and this is something I'm still learning. I heard an analogy recently, a different analogy, about treating yourself like a trauma patient, because you really are. You probably have some CPTSD. You wouldn't expect things from a trauma patient lying in a hospital bed that you would from someone who hasn't been through those things. Okay. Right. So your body needs rest. That was one of the things I prioritized, and I still try to. It's so hard for me to get to bed early. I always have things I could be doing up late, and then the bedtime or the waking up time is always the same time, and it's always so early, right? But so trying to get enough sleep, 8 hours of sleep if you can. It's not always possible. I have this whole thing around food. Like, food has always been such a source of comfort for me, and I sort of I know how to eat healthy, but and I tried to do that, but I also was giving myself a lot of grace in those areas as far as not being totally strict on a diet. But also it's a double-edged sword, because food can also make you feel like crap if you're not eating what your body needs. Right. So just trying, I think the principle here is just giving yourself grace for what you can do, and saying, and also giving yourself credit for what you do. Because I know in my mind, it never seems like I could have a very full day and I would still feel like I hadn't done anything. Okay. Or it wasn't enough, because there was always more I could do. Right. Okay. And this is patterns of thinking that results from abusive relationships, because it really wasn't ever enough in my previous relationship. Yeah. I could never meet that standard. So that's where that comes from. But thinking back and saying, wow, I actually did get a lot done. And yeah, my list maybe not could be completely checked off, but there's tomorrow, and I'm going to tackle those things then. So giving yourself grace and credit as well, and congratulating yourself. And you talk a lot about self-affirmations in the mirror, and I think that sort of fits in with that. And I felt so silly imagining myself, because my ex-husband was a huge mocker and would scoff at anything like that. And so I had a really hard time getting into that. But your encouragement to do that is really, I think, valuable. I still do that. I still talk to myself in the mirror. And what was I going to say? Something about, one thing I know I wanted to mention too, I'm actually working on a blog article about this whole topic, and that's exercise.
So exercise has always been hard for me, but when I exercise, so I've got this playlist that I've been putting together, and it's like a empowering women exercise playlist. So all the songs have an exercise beat to them, but it's not that boring kind of, you know how some exercise playlists are just, it's the same beat. It's really disgusting.
Yeah.
I can't stand boring. Like, so all of these songs have great words or really empowering words, great beats, great melodies, great voices. And they actually, when I get on my elliptical and listen to this playlist, I actually get shivers sometimes, goosebumps on my skin.
Uh-huh.
Those are endorphins. Those are like really good. Endorphins get released into your body, and endorphins are stress relievers. They're stress relievers.
Yeah.
Your body releases dopamine, which is another hormone that it releases when you're in that love bombing phase. So you can actually get a dopamine release from exercising, and it releases serotonin and it actually releases a bunch of really feel good. So if you've got a chemical imbalance, this would be the same thing, keeping with our junkie analogy. This would be the same thing as maybe a nicotine patch, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
It helps. So you need to replace those hormones, though you need to be getting those feel good hormones and those feel good
from another place.
From another place. Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exercising, and plus that you don't even have to do it very long. You can do it for 20 minutes and you will feel amazing. And I'm telling you from the perspective of someone who hates exercising. I think it's super boring. I just want to get on with my day. If I exercise with no music, I just feel drained and exhausted afterwards. And if I exercise with really relaxing kind of, I don't know, like Christian pop music, I also feel drained. And there's some Christian music I actually feel really empowered by. But anyway, I will be writing that article. It's actually going to come out before this podcast. So, and I don't know what it's called, but go check it out on my blog somewhere. I think it's, that's the problem with recording podcasts way in advance. I don't know what the article is going to be called, but it'll be about something about empowering. Oh, I think it's going to actually be an empowering drug that you can't live without or something like that. So anyway,
it's good.
So the exercising, go ahead.
I was just going to encourage her just to really get to know herself, like find the things that she does, like, that music and exercise that works for you. And, I think probably that would work for a lot of people, but like get to know who you really are. And that's something I still really, I have to do, like you do little check-ins with myself. Like, how do I really feel? 'Cause I've spent so much of my life, actually all of my life, ignoring what was going on inside of me. And so a lot of times I'm just so indecisive because I can't figure out like what I even really feel. I haven't even, it's just so packed down.
Yeah.
So like getting to know that identity and like giving yourself permission even to have an identity, is important after an abusive relationship. And actually I want to share something. Speaking of Christian music, I got to go to the Hillsong United concert last week, Friday. Okay. And if you don't know who they are, they're really great long-term band. I'm sure if you're a believer, you've sung their songs. So anyway, it was an amazing worship experience. And I've been struggling some with like, I was in an abusive home growing up and then an abusive marriage and like sort of asking God, why had this been allowed to happen? And just the sense I got, and I want to share is that, just because I lived in lies and about my identity, about who I was, about what I needed to do, does not lessen the truth of God's love for me that entire time. And all I had to do was like uncover the crap and untwist from the crap and really get to know who he was and what he said about me. And I thought I knew him, and I sort of did, but I wasn't almost allowed to believe it or act in like live it out, because of my environment. So, the lies do not make the truth any less true about God's love for you.
That's right.
Get to know him, and he is there and he will meet you there.
Right.
And bring him into your deepest pain and your deepest questions. And like, cause there was so much I held back from him because I was so ashamed, and so overwhelmed by it too. And that it doesn't make sense. Like it's counterintuitive, but it was so hard to release that. So like surrender is a process. a long-term process as well, like almost a daily process, I think, of giving all that pain and all that heartbreak over to God.
Yeah. Well, and that actually brings us to strategy number 4, which is we want to try to escape those bad feelings and those emotions that you get when you're going cold, when you're getting off your drug cold turkey. But here's the thing. The best way through that pain is to actually embrace it and sit in it.
Yes.
Be willing to accept, surrender to the fact that this process is just plain old painful and there's no getting around it. You can't escape it. If you try to escape it or you try to numb out or there's all kinds of ways that we as humans escape our pain, right? If you do that, you won't end up actually coming out on the other side where you can actually be truly free from it and heal from it. So
yes. And the world is full of people who will not deal with their pain. And so it spreads out to all the people around them in various ways, but they can't help it. And I think dealing with your pain, taking a deep dive inside of yourself and allowing yourself to feel that pain is one of the most courageous things anyone can do.
Yep. I think it's Patrick Doyle who said that denial is the root of all pathology.
Yes, it's Patrick Doyle quoting M. Scott Peck.
Oh, okay. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Wow. You have a great memory.
No, I don't, but I know that somehow. I've been meaning to read. I've been reading to read People of the Lie for a long time.
Oh,
I think that's from that book.
Good book. It's such a good book. Okay. Okay. So another strategy then, after you've, kind of gone through all of that, is to process through all of this stuff with support, not just by yourself, but to actually have, so this would again be having those people around you, like Alcoholics Anonymous, they've got people around them, non-judgmental people who will validate what you're going through. They'll just be there to listen. They're not there to give you advice. They're not there to tell you what to do. They're just there to support and listen. It's really sad that you have to go to Alcoholics Anonymous to find something like that. You should be able to go to the church. But the church, usually you don't find that in a church. You find lots of advice, but not so much just listening. So process with support. And I'm gonna put in a shameless plug for the Flying Free group. Okay. So Rachel's the community director of the Flying Free group, and I'm the founder. And there are hundreds of women in that group right now that they're processing what they're going through with the support of us, as well as other leaders in the group and their peers, other women who are right in the thick of what they're going through. So you can find out more about that group if you go to flyingfreenow.com, my website. There's several links on each episode. There's a link at the bottom. There's a link on the sidebar. It is just the Flying Free Education and Support Community. And you can find out more by clicking on that link. So also, I have a workbook coming out. I just finished it. It just is in the editing process right now. But it is a workbook that will comprehensively lead you and thoroughly walk you through each chapter of my book. But it's something that you fill out yourself. It's your personal workbook. It will ask you it'll dig deep, okay? It's like a surgery scalpel. It'll dig deep inside of you and it'll pull out stuff from inside of you and help you to process. And by the time you're done working through that workbook and reading my book, you will have, it's like counseling on steroids. If I would have had this, I could have done without the counseling I didn't have great counselors. Okay. So this is for sure, I don't know if this would replace a really outstanding, phenomenal counselor you might want to, but you could do this with a counselor too. With a counselor. And I'm hoping that people will actually lead small groups and do this in their communities. Have I brought this up before? I don't remember.
I don't think you have. Not on the podcast.
Okay. So anyway, so the last strategy though is just to rebuild your life and get your new focus on, after you've worked through some of the of your personal healing, also to focus on other relationships. Because just because this relationship failed or is failing, doesn't mean that you are still wired to live in relationship with an intimacy and connection with other human beings. So it's really important that you have that.
And healthy ones are out there. You just have to learn, give yourself the tools to know how to identify someone who is healthy versus someone who isn't. Right. And Safe People by Cloud and Townsend, we've recommended that before on here. Is a good one to get to know those traits that people who are safe possess.
So that book is, again, is Safe People. You went by really fast there, but it's called Safe People by Henry Cloud and John Townsend. Great book. And I can't remember what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought. But do you have anything else you want to share? I think I pretty much.
The support is so crucial. Flying Free, there are incredible life-changing relationships that are built in there. And I am not the only one who would say that. The ladies in there are some of the most genuine, loving, kind, supportive people you will ever meet. Yeah. And they love the Lord, and they encourage you in the Lord and give you truth about the Lord, and remind you when you need it. So
that's right.
I can't recommend it enough.
It's not, I've heard some people say, I'm afraid it's going to be like a man bashing thing. It is so not, have you ever gotten that impression?
Never once.
No. That's not to say that people don't share what they're going through. And of course, what they're going through is, men are treating them poorly. But most of these women they truly want to honor God with their lives. And most of them truly care about their partners.
Yes.
And even if they're separated or divorced from them, they truly did want the best for them and had given decades of their life really in trying to achieve, trying to help their partner with that. And it just didn't work out. So it's not, these are very mature Christian women that they're just, I say it all the time. They're the cream of the crop of
they are
there, and they're the ones that have been excommunicated and ostracized from their Christian communities. And I think they are they're God's really precious daughters. So if you have a chance, there's some new things coming out. I'm actually going to send out an email. We're going to be selecting a woman to get a scholarship, a 1-year scholarship each month.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. So there's an application process, but one woman each month will get selected to have a 1-year scholarship. And then also we're going to start doing one drawing a month for new subscribers. And I might let other people who have already subscribed jump on to get in that, especially that first drawing, but to get 3 months for free. So just a 3-month trial period. And so one person each month will get 3 months for free. That will just be that could just be anybody. So, I think, and the other thing I was going to say is I've just added something called office hours. So that's where I will be. I'm not going to be doing any private coaching anymore. I'm going to actually open up my office for an hour each week, and members of Flying Free can just come in and talk with me. So I had my first office hours yesterday. There were 2 women who came in, and we had it really was like a coaching session with those 2 women, and they encouraged each other and they encouraged me. I encouraged them, and it was great. So that's going to be kind of another feature, but that is for members only. So just another little perk of being a member. Patrick Doyle is doing a workshop in the Flying Free group on October 6th. When you join, you get access to all of the past workshops and all future workshops. There's a new workshop with an expert in the field every single month, and just lots and lots of really great stuff. So
Patrick is so great. He's such a blessing. And I actually just shared my butterfly story in I guess it was for September, wasn't it?
That is right. So if you want to hear Rachel's story, the other thing we have is a monthly butterfly story, and a different woman who has gotten out of abuse and has rebuilt her life comes in and shares her story of getting out and rebuilding. And some of the women are single, some of the women have been remarried, but they are all thriving and they all have amazing stories to tell. So it just gives other women hope along the journey.
Yeah, it's always so encouraging to hear these women, and you just feel so connected with them and can pick up pieces of their stories, and it's like from your own life. So I love listening to butterfly stories.
Right. Well, we're going to end there, and but we look forward to talking with you again next week. And until then, fly free.